two men who looked official, took Jack away, and the CCTV footage was all Tu Tien had left. Hours of silence turned the house into a listening room, every sound pointing back to the gate. Then strangers arrived with badges and envelopes, pushing papers and repeating, "Open, trust me." But one calm warning, "Do not open," turned love into a boundary that could actually save them. Today we'll explore how Tu Tien, Jack, and the people around them answered fear with daylight. Hello, friends. Hope you get a quiet minute. Please subscribe for more stories. The days after Christmas can feel like a soft exhale. Wrapping paper is gone. The last cookies sit in a tin. Even the little lights on the tree seem to blink slower, like they're tired too. Outside, the village drifts back toward ordinary chores, feeding chickens, sweeping yards, trading leftovers at the market. But inside Tu Tien's house, ordinary didn't come back so easily, because the gate still looked like a gate. Have you ever noticed how your body keeps listening after a scary night, even when the room is quiet? Tu Tien did. The morning after, she stood at the window and stared at the dust on the road like it might spell an answer. Her hand still remembered hovering near the latch, shaking, while a stranger said the cruelest sentence anyone can say, "Open, trust me." Nothing in the house was broken, and yet everything felt altered, as if the air itself had learned to flinch. At the table, Anna drew a star and wrote one word beneath it in careful letters: daylight. Min waddled in socks and bumped into Tu Tien's leg. He looked up with bright eyes and babbled something that sounded like a question. Tu Tien bent down, held his cheeks and whispered, "Daddy is coming." She said it the way older women pray, not loud, not dramatic, just steady, like keeping a candle lit. What do you do when hope shows up, but fear refuses to leave? Mom Loy moved quietly behind them, reheating soup and folding towels, keeping the house alive on purpose, not because chores mattered most, but because routine is how you tell fear. You don't get to move in. The kettle clicked. A towel was smoothed. A bowl was set down. Each small act said, "We are still here." Around mid-morning, the phone finally rang. Tu Tien's heart jumped so hard it almost made her angry. Angry that her own chest could betray her like that. She answered with trembling fingers. "Hello?" Officer Thu's voice came through calm and grounded. "Tu Tien," she said. "He's with us." Tu Tien's knees nearly gave out. She grabbed the counter with one hand. "Jack, he's shaken," Officer Thu said carefully, "but he's safe. Mr. Deng is bringing him home. I need you to do one thing. Keep the gate exactly how you kept it yesterday. Open, visible, witnesses nearby, no private corners." Tu Tien swallowed. "Yes. And Tu Tien," Officer Thu added softer now, "you did the right thing. You protected your home." When the call ended, Tu Tien didn't scream with relief. She didn't run into the road. She sat down because relief can be its own kind of collapse. Anna saw her mother's face and slid off her chair, wrapping her arms around Tu Tien's waist. "He's coming?" she whispered. Tu Tien nodded, tears spilling. "Yes, baby." Min clapped like he understood the mood, and for the first time in 2 days, Tu Tien let herself laugh through tears, small, cracked, real. While they waited for Mr. Deng to bring Jack home, Tu Tien's mind kept replaying the day he vanished, as if her memory were checking the locks again and again. It had started with a normal moment, Jack leaving in his car, until it wasn't normal at all. Later, CCTV showed two men approaching that car and taking him away in a vehicle that looked official. The word itself was poisonous. Official was supposed to mean safe. Instead, it became a costume, and then came the silence. Hours of it. The kind that cracks a house from the inside. Every scrape of a chair sounded too loud. Every distant motorbike made her pulse jump. She kept thinking, if I hear his footsteps, I'll know. But the footsteps never came. Strangers came to the gate with envelopes and badges, urging her to sign papers and open the latch. They spoke quickly, as if speed could replace truth. They used official language, the same way the men on the CCTV had used an official-looking vehicle. They acted as if the paper in their hands carried the weight of law, and as if Tu Tien's signature could turn fear into permission. Have you ever felt someone trying to rush your hands before your mind can catch up? Tu Tien did. She didn't argue about every sentence. She did something simpler and stronger. She remembered Jack's warning. Don't open for anyone. Trust Mr. Deng and Officer Thu. Those names were not magic, but they were real. They were people she could point to in daylight. Mom Loy stood with her. Auntie Lan and Uncle Ba stayed close as witnesses. The house became a small circle of bodies near an open, visible gate, with no private corners for pressure to hide in. Each time the strangers tried a new tone, stern, sweet, offended, Tu Tien kept the same answer. No, not here. Not like this. Not without the people we trust. Quick recap, because it matters. The CCTV clip of two men and an official vehicle is still echoing in Tu Tien's mind, and Jack hasn't walked back through the gate yet. So she treats every approach as a test. The rule stays simple: daylight, witnesses, and no private corners. Because love without boundaries can be used against you. As dusk came, the light thinned, and that was when the final test arrived. A car pulled up claiming Jack was inside. The voice at the gate demanded entry, as if the latch owed them obedience. Tu Tien's chest flooded with desperate relief so sharp it almost felt like love. If Jack is in there, just open. Just open. But she asked to see him. She refused to move the latch. And then Officer Thu's message came through clear as a bell. Do not open. That sentence didn't make her brave. It made her steady, because it gave her a clean action when her emotions were chaos. The car fled. The street swallowed it. And somewhere beyond the gate, Officer Thu and Mr. Deng moved to retrieve Jack, while Tu Tien did the only job she could do: keep the home safe, choosing boundaries over desperate relief. The strange part was that the most important instruction wasn't romantic. It wasn't even emotional. It was practical. Daylight, visibility, witnesses, no private corners. The same gate that had been a weapon in the dark would become something else in the sun. If the CCTV footage was all she had left, what would she do with it now? She would live the next hours like a document being written in real time. She would keep the entrance open and visible. She would keep people close. She would make sure no one could rewrite the story later with a clever sentence and a signature taken under pressure. By early afternoon, Auntie Lan and Uncle Ba returned without being asked, as if they understood something sacred had formed between them in this house. Witnessing. Mom Loy set tea on the small entrance table again. She didn't decorate. She didn't perform. She simply said, We welcome the truth home. When the sound of a motorbike finally approached, Tu Tien's whole body tightened. Then she saw it. Mr. Deng riding carefully, and behind him, Jack. Jack looked like a man who had been forced to sit in an ugly room and keep his face calm. His hair was slightly mussed. His jacket smelled faintly of smoke, like someone had tried to make him uncomfortable on purpose. But his eyes, when they found Tu Tien, softened in a way that made the whole yard feel warmer. Tu Tien took one step, then stopped herself. Not because she didn't want him, but because she had learned something hard and valuable. Safety is not rushing. Safety is choosing. Jack stopped outside the gate, not entering fast, not sneaking in. He looked at the neighbors and nodded, respectful. "Thank you," he said simply. Then he looked at Tu Tien. "May I come in?" That question, so simple, hit Tu Tien like a kindness she didn't know she deserved. She nodded once. Yes, Jack walked through the open gate in daylight, in front of witnesses, as if to rewrite the entire memory of the night before. And the moment he reached her, Tu Tien didn't speak. She just pressed her forehead to his chest and breathed. Jack wrapped his arms around her slowly, carefully, like he was holding something precious that had been shaken but not broken. "I'm here," he murmured. "I'm home." Anna ran into his side and clung. Min toddled over and demanded to be lifted, fussing like, "Where have you been?" Jack scooped him up and kissed his cheek again and again, eyes closing on the second kiss, like he was forcing his nervous system to believe this part. Mom Loy stood near the kettle, hands trembling in a way she would never admit. Mr. Deng came to stand beside her, not dramatic, just close enough. "You did well," he said under his breath. Mom Loy didn't look at him, but her voice cracked. "I hate that they tried to use papers like knives." Mr. Deng nodded. "Then we keep answering with daylight," he murmured, "and with people who won't look away." Tu Tien finally pulled back enough to look at Jack's face. "What happened?" she whispered. Jack exhaled slowly. "They brought me to a mediation office," he said. "They flashed badges, used official language, pushed papers across the table. They wanted me to sign something fast, something that would avoid conflict." Tu Tien's stomach turned. "And you—" "I didn't sign," Jack said. His voice stayed calm, but his jaw tightened. "They tried to scare me with words. Grandparent rights, social pressure, the village will talk. Then they tried a different threat. We can make this harder." He paused, then reached for Tu Tien's hand. "But I remembered the promise I made you. No more hiding, no secret doors, no signing under fear." Officer Thu stepped forward from the road, where she'd been standing quietly, and nodded. "Mr. Deng and I arrived before they could escalate," she said. "We documented names, the location, and what they tried to do. Why would someone with badges fear daylight more than a locked door? Because daylight creates witnesses, and witnesses create a record. A closed gate can be argued about later. An open, visible yard with people standing there is harder to twist into a private story." That's why Officer Thu kept repeating the same simple instructions, and why Mr. Deng stayed close. They weren't offering a dramatic rescue. They were building a clean line of truth, so no one could claim Jack agreed, or that Tu Tien let them in. When neither thing happened, Auntie Lan made a sharp sound in her throat. "So that's what it is," she muttered. "They couldn't shame her in public, so they tried to trap him on paper. Jack looked at Tu Tien again. "And they tried to use my name at the gate," he said softly. "I'm sorry." Tu Tien's eyes filled again. "They did," she whispered, "but I didn't open." Jack's face changed. Pain, then pride, then a deep tenderness that held steady. He lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles like a vow. "Thank you," he whispered. "You saved us. Right there is what stepping out of darkness looks like. The same way it looked when Do Not Open kept the latch still. Not fireworks, not revenge, just two people thanking each other for choosing safety. After that, the day didn't become perfect. It became honest. That's the quieter miracle. What's the difference between a promise and a boundary when fear is pushing at your door? A promise is what you feel in your chest. A boundary is what you do with your hands. In that mediation office, Jack felt the promise, but he held the boundary by refusing to sign. At the gate, Tu Tien felt the love, but she held the boundary by refusing the latch. Officer Thu and Mr. Dong turned that boundary into something even stronger by documenting names, the location, and the attempt. By evening, the house didn't throw a party. It did something better. It healed in small pieces. Jack sat with Anna and asked her to show him the words she wrote. She held up her paper, proud and serious. Daylight. Jack nodded like he was receiving a medal. "That's exactly it," he told her. "That word kept our home safe." Min fell asleep on Jack's shoulder after dinner, heavy and trusting. Jack didn't move for a long time, even when his arm went numb, because after being held in an ugly place, holding your child feels like re-entering the world. Later, when the lights were low, Tu Tien stood near the little tree and touched the wooden ornament again, the one that carried their names and that faint pencil promise. Jack came behind her. "We can take the tree down," he said gently, "but we keep what it meant." Tu Tien swallowed. "I still feel scared when I look at the gate." Jack didn't say, "Don't be scared." He didn't rush her. He just held her hand and said, "Then tomorrow we do one small thing, together." "What?" she whispered. "We walk out," Jack said. "Not far, just beyond the gate, in daylight, with our heads up, not to prove anything, but to teach your body a new memory." Tu Tien closed her eyes and breathed slowly. A new memory. That was the real gift after Christmas. Not lights, not food, not even safety that never gets tested, but the courage to step forward again, hand in hand, when the dark tries to convince you it owns your life. Outside, the village kept moving, but inside they chose calm over haste again today. And as Tu Tien leaned back into Jack's chest, she whispered the sentence that felt like crossing a bridge. "Tomorrow, we walk." In the quiet days after Christmas, Tu Tien learned that fear doesn't leave just because the night ends. Jack vanished. CCTV showed two men and an official vehicle, and hours of silence cracked the house. Strangers arrived with badges, envelopes, and papers meant to rush her hands, but she kept the gate visible in the yard full of witnesses. Officer Tho and Mr. Dong brought Jack home before anything could escalate, documenting names, the location, and the attempt. Jack hadn't signed under pressure, and he didn't rush through the gate. He asked, "May I come in?" Anna's careful word, daylight, became the family's rule, not a decoration. Mom Loy held routine like a shield, and Auntie Lan and Uncle Ba held the role of witnessing. It wasn't revenge that healed them, but boundaries practiced in plain sight. So they kept daylight, and tomorrow they walked.